Hi everyone, this is Mr. Schmidt and Dr. McGarity, and we're going to teach you today how to identify the main verbs in a sentence. Before watching this video, make sure you have mastered your parts of speech and your prepositional phrases. We'll be using those terms throughout the video. So before we start that, let's listen to a little bit of Charlie Parker. We really love that track. It's called Leapfrog from Bird and Diz on Verbs 1952. And Charlie Parker is about to be joined on that track by Dizzy Gillespie. You see him on the right here, he's a trumpet player. What's so great about Leapfrog is just how quickly the song moves. I mean, those guys are really cooking. You gotta be good to play that fast. And the reason this is relevant to our lesson today is that verbs, especially the main verbs in your sentence, have the power to make your sentences move like that. They create motion and energy in your sentence. So you want to learn what they are and how to use them. And that's what we want to do today. Let's consider a sentence. This is a sentence about motion. Light travels 186,000 miles per second. It's true, by the way. Now, you'll remember from a previous video that the first step of sentence analysis is to identify the prepositional phrase. And we recommend that you bracket a prepositional phrase using square brackets, and that you then label the object of a preposition with an OP. See if you can do that in this sentence right now. Do you remember how to identify the prepositional phrase? Hit pause and do it. Okay, so there are my markings. Where should I put them? Remember, a prepositional phrase begins with a preposition, like the word per, and then it ends with a noun that is that preposition's object, in this case, the word second. So that is the object of preposition. This is always your first step. Always step one, identify the prepositional phrase, bracket it off. Now the next step is to identify the main verb in the sentence. And remember I told you a verb should create some kind of motion in the sentence. What word in this sentence creates the motion? Do you see it? It is, of course, the word travels. And the word travels, as the verb in this sentence, is the most important word in the whole sentence. The verb is by far the most important because it creates action or state of being. So it's either going to give your sentence some kind of action or motion or describe some kind of state of being, of existence. So let's look at some examples of some verbs. First, some action verbs. Action verbs can be physical actions like run, build, say, drive, fall, drink, or pretend. See, those are all things you have to do with your body. You move around and do them. They can also be mental actions like think, wonder, feel, decide, trust, forget, ponder. Physical actions happen with your body. Mental actions happen in your mind alone. Both of them are motions. Both of them are actions. They're all action verbs. There's another kind of verb which is not an action. It's not really even a kind of motion. It's really more of a state of being. And the state of being verbs are all going to be forms of the verb to be. You need to memorize these if you haven't done it already. Here they are. Your be verbs are am, is, are, was, were, being, and been. Make sure you memorize that list before you go any further. So here are the different verb types. There are action verbs, there are state of being verbs. Actions can be physical or mental. States of being are all forms of the verb to be. So let's focus first on action verbs and how to find them. Remember, an action verb can name a physical or a mental action. And what we're going to do is, with every action verb we find, we're going to underline it twice, and we're going to label it A for action. Let's look at some examples. So here's our original sentence. Light travels 186,000 miles per second. Remember, the first thing we want to do is bracket off that prepositional phrase, per second, label it OP for the object of preposition. And then we're going to take our verb, travels, which is an action verb, underline it twice, label it A for action. Now, at this point, I have to tell you, you need to make sure and download and print my handout on this. If you haven't done that already, go ahead and hit pause and download and print it because the rest of these examples are on the handout and I want you marking them on the paper as you watch. So here are 4 sentences on the handout. Make sure you're following along. I want you to do step 1, put the prepositional phrase in square brackets, label the object OP. Then do step 2, double underline the verb, and label it A for action. I'm going to go ahead and tell you all the verbs in these 4 are action verbs. Hit pause now and do that. Okay, so here are all the prepositional phrases. Make sure you identify them all and put an OP over every object of a preposition. If you missed one, go ahead and mark it now. A lot of people miss the in may. They forget that a prepositional phrase can be at the beginning of a sentence. And a lot of people miss this one here by ending it too soon. It shouldn't be from a 30-year. It's from what? From career. Okay, so where do I put my double underlines? Well, in number 1, I want a double underline folded because that's a physical action and label it A. Number 2, it's pushed, label that one A. And number 3, it's dripped, label that one an A. And number 4, it's retired, label that one an A. And notice that all 4 of these actions are physical actions. We don't have any mental actions, but it doesn't mean that there aren't any in the world, right? Some action verbs are about how you think and feel, not what you do with your body. So that should have been easy enough. Let's move on to the second kind of main verb, which is the linking verb. Now, a linking verb is not going to create the same kind of motion and action that an action verb does. All it's going to do is link two things together. It'll link a noun to an adjective or a noun to another noun. You need to think of it almost like an equals sign, or like a verb that does the same function as the verb is or are or was or were, those be verbs, right? Again, we're going to still underline it twice, and we're going to label it L for linking. On your handout, you're going to see a chart that'll be very helpful to you as you're learning this. There's a chart with all of the be verbs. These are linking verbs when they're used as main verbs. But then there are a bunch of other linking verbs too: appear, become, feel, grow, look, remain, seem, etc. And these ones are a little bit tricky. They can be linking verbs or they can be action verbs depending on the usage. So one of the things you're going to have to keep in mind is you have to learn how to distinguish between when these verbs are used as linking verbs and when they're used as action verbs. Let's look at a few sentences together. So in this first sentence, Paul is a painter. It's pretty obvious. There's only one verb in the sentence. The verb is. It's on the list of linking verbs, so that's definitely a linking verb. So we can go ahead and double underline, label it L for linking. But this one here, Mary seems smart. Well, okay, this is a verb, seems, and it's on that list of verbs that could be either one. See, there it is, seem, okay? So what are we going to do? Well, we'll definitely double underline it because it's a verb. Now we got to decide linking or action. Well, I'm going to tell you how to do that. You want to use something called the substitution test. If you're not sure if a word is an action verb or a linking verb, all you have to do is check if you can replace the verb with the form of the verb to be, am, is, are, was, were, be, being, been, while keeping the basic meaning of the sentence intact, then it is a linking verb, because a linking verb is communicating a state of being. It's communicating that something is something else or is very similar to something else. If you can't replace it with be, then it's an action verb. So going back to our examples, Mary seems smart. Are we saying something similar to Mary is smart? Is this working like an equal sign, Mary equals smart? Yes, it is. So that's a linking verb. And similarly here, the apple smells rotten. Well, we know smells is a verb, double underline it, but it's on our list of verbs that can be either one. There it is, smell. So we have to use a substitution test. The apple is rotten. Does that make sense? Does it mean about the same thing as the apple smells rotten? Yeah, sure does. So this is also a linking verb. So here are the next 4 sentences on your handout. I want you to hit pause and do the same 2 steps. Put a prepositional phrase in square brackets, label the object OP, then double underline each linking verb, but this time you're going to label it L for linking, not A for action. Hit pause now. Okay, so here are the answers. Check them. Make sure that you found all the prepositional phrases, you labeled your OPs correctly, found all the verbs, labeled them L. Do a quick review as to why seemed, looks, and appeared work as linking verbs here. It's because they all pass the substitution test. You could replace each of them with an is or a was or a were, and it would still make sense in the sentence. So again, our substitution test is if you can replace a verb with a be verb and keep the basic meaning of the sentence intact, then it is a linking verb. If you can't do that, then it's an action verb. So let's look at these 4 sentences. Again, these are on your handout. Follow along. I want you to hit pause and do both steps. Find the prepositional phrases and the verbs. But this time I'm going to mix in some action and some linking verbs. And you got to tell the difference. Go. Okay, here are the answers. Are you ready? Check your answers against mine. Make sure you got the action and the linking correct. Make sure you found the objects of prepositions correctly. If you understand this, move on. If you don't, go back and watch the beginning of the video again. So to review, verbs are actions and states of being. Action verbs are things like mother called, there's an action verb before the movie started. Yesterday I remembered. That's a mental action, not a physical one. Bartleby the bee flew from his hive to the garden. That's an action, a physical action. Linking verbs are basically like be verbs. They're anything that connects one thing to another, says that it is or seems or smells like that thing. So Lucy looks confident, just like Lucy is confident with her new framing hammer. That's linking. But unlike Lucy, I am, there's a be verb, I am no carpenter, linking I with carpenter. Remember these 4 sentences from the first video? These are all by professional writers. I want you to take a look at these and don't worry about finding the prepositional phrases, but I want you to find where the verbs are and tell me how many linking verbs and how many action verbs you can find. Hit pause and do that right now. Okay, here they are. You ready? Did you notice that in these professionally written sentences, there were 5 action verbs for 1 linking verb? This teaches us a very important lesson about great writers versus mediocre ones. Great writers know how to use action verbs to create motion, to create interest, to create life in their sentences. That's what makes your sentences lively and vivid, using good action verbs. You should limit the number of linking verbs you use in your writing and try to use more and more different action verbs. Just a quick writing lesson. So now it's time to prove that you know what you're doing. The independent practice on your worksheet, there are 10 items. Again, step 1, find the prepositional phrases. Step 2, find the verbs, label them L or A for linking or action. Hit pause now and then come back and check your answers. Okay, here are the answers to the first 5. You ready? Here they are. Check yours against mine. I bet you might have accidentally marked this to learn French as a prepositional phrase. Remember, that's not a prepositional phrase. It's an infinitive phrase, and we know that because it's to plus a verb, to learn. You might have missed one of the action verbs in this sentence. There can be 2 main verbs in a sentence, so find them all. And you might have accidentally labeled remained as an action verb instead of a linking verb. If you did that, you probably didn't do the substitution test. Can you say Stephen was determined to learn French? Yes, you sure can. So that's a linking verb. Okay, now I'm going to give you the answers to the next 5. Hit pause if you're not ready. Okay, here they are. Check your answers against ours. Make sure that you did everything right. And if you're not sure about something, go back and watch the rest of the video to review.
Again, we highly recommend this book, Simple Steps of Sentence Sense by Charlene Tess. Excellent resource for learning sentence analysis. And your next videos after this one will be identifying helping verbs, identifying the subject in special cases, and then finally subject-verb agreement.
This has been Mr. Schmidt and Dr. McGarity teaching you how to identify main verbs. And we want to remind you one more time in the immortal words of Alexander Pope that a little learning is a dangerous thing. We all have a lot to learn, so we should keep studying, keep reading, keep writing, keep working on your verbs so that one day you can write like Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie play.